There we go. All right. Welcome to the virtual college fair for all Alaska students. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the question and answer button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening today, so be sure to check out the full schedule at strivescan.com/Alaska. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you and welcome everyone. We're so excited for you to be here this evening, learn a little bit more about the universities in the state of Washington that you have access to, and more importantly, maybe some of those more affordable options in the state of Washington utilizing the WUE program, or that Western Undergraduate Exchange. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment for us all to introduce ourselves so you know who is in front of you. And then after that, we'll jump into it. My name is Sarah Buswell, Associate Director of Admissions at Washington State University. Robert, shall you kick it off next?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Stolzberg. I'm an admissions counselor at Western Washington University.
And hi, everyone. I'm a senior admissions counselor with Central Washington University, and I am the rep for the state of Alaska.
Thanks, everyone. So now we can jump right into this. One of my favorite presentations to chat about with students outside of the state of Washington is WUE, that Western Undergraduate Exchange. WUE is indeed how it's pronounced. Hopefully after this, you'll not only learn a little bit about our respective universities, but you'll have a clear understanding of WUE, its program outcomes, any kind of thresholds and barriers that you should be aware of, and of course, where to start in all of this. So I like to start with WICHE, Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. WICHE is, you can kind of think of the governing board of all of the WUE schools that are out there. WICHE is a fantastic place to start if you are asking yourself, which schools offer WUE? How much is a WUE institute, or how much is that going to cost me as an Alaskan resident? What programs are offered at various schools? Which programs across the West? WICHE keeps track of all of those answers to each of those questions. I do tell students that WICHE is a place to start, but not necessarily your place to finish. Please always double check costs, requirements, application needs with the individual universities, as there can be a little bit of a lag between the policies that we at the university update and report to what WICHE is having listed on their website. So WICHE, take down this website, wiche.edu/WUE, for all of your questions to get started on WUE schools. But again, always touch base with those colleges and universities to get the real specifics of WUE. Next slide is WUE and how it pertains, or how it affects your total cost of attendance. Last year, in the school year of 19 and 20, WUE was awarded to more than 42,000 students across the West. Altogether, that equated to more than $408.6 million in out-of-state tuition savings. When we do the quick math, 408.6 million over 42,500 WUE awards, on average, a student was getting a discount of $9,600 each year. That's an average. At some universities, at some institutes, the savings could be larger. In some cases, it could be less. It really comes down to and boils down to the total cost of attendance, in-state versus out-of-state tuition. And we'll jump into how that equates in what WUE is and why it might vary from university to university. WUE at its core is a tuition reduction program. A lot of times I get some students who are confused that think that WUE is in-state tuition, or it means that you are getting a tuition reciprocity, or that you pay a special Alaska tuition, and it's not quite that. WUE is in place to increase the mobility of out-of-state students to each of the states within the West. At the most, a WUE tuition rate is going to be 1.5 times that of in-state tuition. also referred to as 150% of in-state tuition or better. That's why you'll see those dramatic differences between how much of savings you're getting at different universities. A university that costs a little bit more is likely going to have a higher WUE award that they're giving to students to make sure that it still meets that 150% or better of in-state tuition. A university that costs a little bit less might have a smaller WUE award, but it doesn't mean that they are any less value just because it's not a big scholarship. You're still 1.5 times that, or 150% of better of that in-state tuition. There are more than 160 colleges and universities for you to choose from, and these awards are granted at both 2-year and 4-year universities. And as an Alaska resident, your only goal is to find a 2-year or a 4-year that's outside of the state of Alaska and is a public institute. Those are going to be your WUE choices. If you're looking at a community college, if you're looking at a 4-year school, both are going to have 2 WUE programs, and oftentimes those 4 years have specialized 2-year or transfer WUEs in place too. This is our list of all of what we consider Western. So all of those states that have WUE schools are listed in this map here. 15 states, 1 US territory. All of these states will have WUE schools. However, not necessarily every school, every college or university grants the WUE. And we'll get over into that in a little bit here. But as an Alaska student, maybe you're thinking you want to go to another more isolated US state. Great, Hawaii is on the list of states that you can pursue for a WUE option. Maybe you're really thinking you need a big dose of sun, Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico. Great, you've got colleges or universities that you can pursue in the Southwest. But you really do have lots of institutes at your fingertips that are going to be more of an affordable option because of WUE. Now, similar as I mentioned, just because the state is here does not mean that every institute is going to grant WUE. We'll use Washington as an example. Here are the 4-year universities in the state of Washington that offer WUE. And you'll also kind of find their geolocations on this map too. So from Washington State University, located in Pullman, you'll see over in the southeast is where our logo is located. Andrea with Central Washington University, because of the name, you can kind of guess that it's in the centralmost part of the state, right smack dab in the middle. And of course, Robert with Western Washington University, again in the name, it's on the west side, but up in the beautiful North Puget Sound in Bellingham, Washington. Some of those schools that you won't see on this map, University of Washington, Pacific Lutheran University, Whitworth, Whitman, and it's either because they are private universities that don't have those in-state and out-of-state rates, or it's just a university that doesn't offer it. But here are your Washington options. And with that, I will hand it over to Andrea, please.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. Sarah did such a great job, but we're gonna dive a little bit deeper just to make sure that we all understand the difference. So this again is the tuition reduction. The WUE schools offer 3 different types of tuition rates. So there's resident tuition, and so this is for students who have lived in that same state and have established residency as the same state as the university. They get the resident tuition rate. There's the non-resident tuition rate. So these are students from non-participating WUE states, which means a lot of the East Coast students, if they want to come over here onto this side of the country, they'll be paying the non-resident tuition rate. And then again, as Sarah explained, there is WUE. And that again, if you're just joining us, is that tuition reduction where you pay 150% of resident tuition. Now on the next slide, we're going to crunch the numbers a little bit, and you are going to be able to see the breakdown of those 3 different types of tuition rates. And then just note that these are all just estimates. This isn't the cost of resident tuition or any of the others for any particular school. We just wanted to demonstrate the difference for you all. So on the left, you'll see those different types of rates, and then we also included financial aid and scholarships. And on the right, you're going to see their value. So again, resident tuition, if it's about $10,000 for an in-state student, it's going to be around $26,000 for one of those non-resident, say again, those East Coast students. And then if you're a WUE student, just like all of you are, You could save up to $44,000 for 4 years by paying $15,000 per year. And then again, we talk about financial aid, and you must do the FAFSA in order to qualify for any sort of financial aid at any of the universities that are participating WUE schools. There's merit scholarships. Those amounts are going to differ depending on what school you're at. But the fun part is they can stack on top of WUE, which again reduces the overall cost that you'd be paying. So again, WUE tuition scholarships and financial aid are the 3 ways that you can use the money to pay for college. All right, so participating schools, what you'll need to do is apply directly to the institution of your choice for admissions, and you'll want to check the WUE status. So what you'll want to do is note that every school has different qualifications. So you'll want to check the websites, which we're going to go over later, to see what those are to make sure that you are applying in the correct way for every single WUE school. Now, for some of the eligibility on the next slide, like I mentioned, you may be required to submit a separate application for consideration. Some of those are also going to look at evidence of academic performance, such as ACT, SAT test scores. That might be a little different because of COVID, so check with your universities. But we'll also probably be looking at your high school GPA or other placement depending on the college that you're applying to. Some universities are going to automatically offer WUE to eligible students so that you don't have to do any sort of separate application. And then other schools, there's going to be really specific qualifications and a specific application. Western Washington University is going to dive a little bit deeper in a little bit to talk about theirs because they are very unique. Also keep in mind that some schools have a limited number of WUE tuition rates that they can offer. So you really don't want to wait too long before applying. Otherwise, you might miss out on the WUE rate, even if you qualify for them. And again, you're really going to want to consult the WUE website for more details. And on the next slide here, we've got the academic qualifications. So I really just want to emphasize again to check with each and every university that you're interested in applying to that's offering the WUE. And I really wish there was like one universal way that we all determine the WUE, but unfortunately that's just not the case. So that's why I can't stress enough that you really need to check with each school so that way you're not missing out on this wonderful tuition reduction opportunity.
Oh, okay, here's me. Length of award. You would think at this point I would remember to unmute my Zoom microphone. Yeah, I would say kind of the thesis statement for a lot of what we're going to talk about here is everyone does it a little bit differently at different places. Length of award is one that's a little bit universal. For the most part, they're going to be 4-year awards, particularly at the 4-year public universities that we're looking at most today. You know, up to 4 years, but also capped at 4 years. And there are also schools that have a WUE transfer program. And it's probably not the last time I'm going to say this, but if you are interested in that sort of thing, if you're looking to come to a WUE school as a transfer student after getting a 2-year degree elsewhere, definitely make sure to check with the universities that you are interested in to make sure that that is a thing where you are. So looking at degree programs, this is another area where eligibility for the WUE can really vary based on you know, particular criteria, right? I think we've already talked a little bit about at some places the WUE is strictly an academic award. At some places there's a first come, first serve sort of setup. At some places everybody is going to receive the WUE. And there are universities where you know, students pursuing certain majors are eligible for the WUE, but not students pursuing all majors. That's, you know, definitely the case at some places where it doesn't matter what you major in. Some places it does matter. So what we're kind of getting to with this is it's a little bit different everywhere. And where can we take a look at this? WICHE, if you remember from the top of the presentation here, is sort of the overarching umbrella organization that is in charge of the WUE. They have a really helpful search tool on their website. And what's neat about this and why this is a good place to start is that this is somewhere where you can actually search based on the criteria that you're interested in, right? So maybe you want to be an engineering major and you're like really sure in your heart of hearts that you want to study engineering. And a good way to search and a good place to start can be seeing which schools offer the WUE to engineering students. Or maybe you're from somewhere like Fairbanks and you're like, get me out of here. I want to go somewhere that's a little bit more sunny. And you can search by schools in California or schools in Hawaii, things like that. Maybe you just want to see like every single school that offers the WUE. But like we mentioned at the top, this is a great place to start. This is where you can get your feet wet and get some of that initial information based on the things that you're interested in. But like we mentioned, definitely make sure that you're following up with the schools that you're interested in to make sure that you're getting the most accurate information on how it works at their school. And speaking of how it works at their school, let's take a little look at the three schools that we have here: Central, Washington State, and Western Washington. I think this is a really helpful sort of comparison of different ways that different schools can run the WUE. We've got kind of like a Goldilocks and the Three Bears, I don't know, this porridge isn't hot enough sort of thing here. You can see with the GPA requirement, Central does not have one. You must be admitted, but there's not a GPA cutoff. At Washington State is 3.6, and at Western it's approximately 3.9. And I will talk later on about what makes the WUE a little bit weird and confusing at our school. So hopefully you're not too confused by how weird it is going there. But yeah, I'm not going to go over each and every one of these, but you can see some have test score requirements, some don't. Of note with how Western is doing it this year, with all of the cancellations and lack of access to standardized tests, as you can see, it's not a requirement for 2021 grads. As you can also see, different schools are going to have a different deadline for the WUE. So that's also something that's important to, if you're making a spreadsheet with information about the universities that you're interested in, which is something that I definitely recommend doing if you're applying to multiple colleges, make sure to be putting that WUE deadline in there as well. Beyond the comparison of the schools, we have some tips and tricks for what can make you successful in that WUE process. First is to figure out if you're eligible, right? Everyone here is from Alaska, so you're all going to be eligible for the WUE because you are from one of those Western states and or territories. Pick out the WUE schools, right? Like we mentioned before, even some of the public universities in Washington and other states do not offer the WUE. So make sure that if you are interested in that sort of tuition reduction, that the schools you are looking at also offer that. Like we mentioned, check out the different criteria, make sure that you're meeting those. And then obviously apply to schools, apply early, meet those deadlines. I can't speak for the other universities here today. We definitely have students every year who apply to Western late and who would probably be getting the WUE otherwise, but don't get their application in on time and lose out on that opportunity. And then that final bullet point, I think, just kind of sums up everything we've talked about. Be informed. I echo that. I wish there were one consistent system for all of us doing it the same way, but that's not the case. And so best thing you can do to be in the loop and be successful in that is just to make sure that you're talking to the different schools that you are interested in. Some other important tips, and this really at this point is a little bit outside of just the WUE. These are important tips no matter if you're applying to UAF or if you're applying to school on the East Coast that doesn't offer the WUE. But take some time to gather what scholarship opportunities are available, directly from the schools that you're interested in, something that might be offered through your own community or through another national organization. Attend the virtual college events that are available to you, which obviously you all are doing right now. So props to you. Keep doing that. Contact university representatives. We're all going to share our contact information later on in this presentation. Keep your choices open, right? That's mostly a matter of being open-minded to what is available, and making sure that you're applying early and not closing any doors for yourself unnecessarily. As is this point of taking the SAT or the ACT early, that's going to come with the big caveat of a lot of schools that normally require SAT or ACT scores are not currently requiring them. Your mileage may vary. Check with the schools, meet those deadlines. And I love this last one, create a professional email for college purposes. Realistically, you are not going to be denied from the university of your dreams because your email address is, skibum91@hotmail.com or something like that. But overall presentation does end up making a big difference for a lot of students in the college application process. Things like having a professional email, proofreading your work, proofreading your emails to admissions folks. That's all small stuff that adds up, and creating a professional first dot last or whatever you choose email for college purposes is pretty easy and can be a small thing that makes a difference. So at this point, we're going to go a little bit more in depth into the specific universities. We're going to take a few minutes, each of the three of us, and talk about our own institutions, for you all to see if, hey, maybe this is somewhere I'm interested in applying and interested in pursuing the WUE at. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah to talk about Washington State University.
Thanks, Robert. I kind of have a feeling I know who skibum91 at hotmail.com might be. But yes, let's jump into our specific colleges and universities. As I mentioned at the top, I work for Washington State University, and this is one of my favorite photos to present of campus because it really showcases this large campus, big university in a very kind of more isolated setting. When you look off into the distance, you see more agricultural land space. There aren't any freeways, no skyscrapers or large highways. It really is this college town in the middle of the rolling wheat fields of the Palouse. The city of Pullman is in eastern Washington. I get a lot of questions of, oh, so how close to Seattle are you? We're about 4.5 hours east of Seattle. If you're familiar with Spokane, just about 1.5 hours south of the Spokane area is where you're going to find Pullman, Washington here. The weather is very four seasons-esque. You can expect at least inches, if not a couple of feet of snow, probably mild by comparison for a lot of Alaska residents. The summers are hot, they're pretty gorgeous. Many students, they'll say the best kept secret are summer classes and staying during the summer break on the Pullman campus. Spring is mild, fall is mild. We have 6 ski resorts within a 2.5-hour radius. Mountain biking, hiking, backpacking, hunting, fishing, skiing, snowboarding. It really is a great location for any kind of outdoor recreation activity. The city of Pullman is a real quintessential college town. There are just under 35,000 people who live in Pullman, and most of them are college students. About 21,000 total people living in Pullman are college students. Someone did the math, and at one point it came out to the average Pullman resident is 22 years old. So you can imagine going into your grocery store, stopping at a stoplight, pretty much any kind of interaction that you have in Pullman is likely going to be with one of your peers, another college student. This is another one of my favorite photos as it showcases there's not really clear definition between where campus ends and the city of Pullman begins, but even in the downtown area, in the middle of the intersection, you'll find WSU logos painted into the center. You'll find WSU flags flying from the telephone poles. A lot of mom and shop, small businesses litter the streets of Pullman. Yes, we have your Starbucks, your Taco Bell, McDonald's, Arby's, Dairy Queen, but a lot of the restaurants and boutiques in Pullman, in the downtown area, are going to be those small businesses, which we certainly support. As far as why you would be going to WSU, hopefully it's to earn a degree and also enjoy 4 years outside of Alaska in the state of Washington. We have more than 200 programs for students to choose from. They're all non-impacted. As a state's land-grant institute, you'll certainly find a lot of our strengths in engineering and architecture, agriculture and animal sciences, nursing and education. Those were really the 4 pillars that founded Washington State University and tend to be core strengths still today. Within engineering, mechanical, electrical, and computer science are by far our 3 biggest and probably well-known programs. In addition to those 4 areas, though, you can look for hospitality and business management as one of our standout programs, as well as a lot of our School of Biological Sciences degrees. We are a Tier 1 R1 institute. For you as a prospective undergraduate student, that means that there's an expectation and an opportunity for you to research while you're studying. You can kind of think about it as synonymous with internships, as experience, as resume builders. We want to give you the opportunity to tell stories of how you've made an impact on your field without having actually graduated and earned a job quite yet when you've moved on. One of my favorite examples, we have a grizzly bear research facility on our campus, and one of my students, he's just applying to vet school at WSU this year, but he worked at the Grizzly Bear Research Center as an undergraduate student, and he ended up taking vitals and working with grizzly bears under anesthesia far earlier than he ever took vitals or worked with cats and dogs. So it's just kind of, it's an interesting relationship, the types of opportunities you have at a research institute. But yes, research is STEM. Research is also, though, music. It's fine arts. It's communication, political science, history. All areas have professors that are working in the field and trying to expose their students to the many opportunities that they too might have. We are Pac-12 Division I athletics, though of course that looks very different this year. There are no screaming fans in Martin Stadium for Cougar football Saturday. Our women's soccer team, who ended up finishing 4th in the entire nation, are unfortunately not on the playing field right now, but once everything gets settled down, we hope to have Pac-12 sports back on campus. It brings a sense of pride and community onto our campus that our students certainly appreciate. Outside of student involvement, how to actually get the WUE, how to afford going to WSU, you must be an Alaska resident with a 3.6 unweighted GPA or higher. It's awarded automatically to students. When you apply for admission, you're reviewed for the WUE. If you're not quite WUE eligible, we do have another automatic scholarship, which is a 3.2 to a 3.59 GPA, granted valued at $7,000 each year. And with that, let me hand it back over to Andrea for Central Washington University.
Thanks, Sarah. So as she said, my name is Andrea, and I am the rep for Alaska for Central Washington University. I'm going to also describe our picture really fast. It's also one of my favorites because you can kind of see that we're really flat. We're in the middle of a valley surrounded by the mountain pass. Very small town, beautiful, gorgeous brick buildings. Makes it for a very nice college town. So on the next slide, let's talk about our location. Again, as Sarah mentioned, you probably could have guessed that we are in the center of Washington State, located in Ellensburg. So we are about an hour and a half from Seattle, 3 hours from Spokane, and 4 hours from Portland. So one of the huge draws for our Alaska students is that not only can you come to a city where it's very similar to Alaska, where we get all 4 seasons, but you really get to explore the state based on our geographical location. So if you want to go explore Eastern Washington, a little bit south in Yakima, head up north, go check out Seattle for the weekend, you can definitely do those opportunities. We're really close to skiing and snowboarding at Snoqualmie Pass as well. We're close to the Yakima River, where our students like to enjoy river rafting. And one of my favorite things about Central, one of our offices, is the Outdoor Rentals and Pursuits office. Is, you know, say your first year, you don't get a chance to bring your skis down or your camping gear or any of your other outdoor activity gear that you want. You can rent it from our office for pretty cheap, go enjoy it with your friends, and then bring it back the following year where you actually have your own gear to do that. We get over 300 days of sunshine a year. Oh, sorry, Sarah. 300 days of sunshine a year, and we have around 12,343 students, making us a medium-sized university. So next slide, please. So I talked about campus size a little bit. So average class size is about 25 students. And I believe Robert mentioned earlier something about Goldilocks. That's also how I like to view Central, is we are not too big of a university, but we're also not too small. A lot of students think we're in that perfect middle area when it comes to size. Campus itself is 6 blocks by 6 blocks, and it's all nice and flat. So when we do get snow, you're not slipping down hills or anything. But also we have a faculty to student ratio of 19:1. And this really does allow for you to engage in meaningful conversations. You know, you're not just a number to these professors. They really get to know your name, they know your goals, and they can help you out to achieve them. And all of our classes are taught by faculty members. Some larger universities have teaching assistants, which is great. But this is where you're learning the content directly from the source of the people who, you know, that's their expertise. And then we have 135 majors that you can choose from. Some of those being notable is our teaching, our music, our theater, and then again, based on our location, we're really big into environmental sciences. And then for student life, one of my favorite things that we have on campus is Monday Movie Madness, where we show a free on-campus movie in our theater. They're usually the movies that are out of theater, but they haven't come to Netflix, Hulu, HBO yet. Since we are a little bit more remote, we like to bring people to campus. So we'll bring in concerts and guest speakers. We will do other activities such as career fairs, so you can get those internship opportunities, so you're not driving across the pass to Seattle to try to seek those out. We are NCAA Division II for athletics, and to see a full list of all of our varsity sports, you can check out our website. And then also, again, we have our Student Union Recreation Center, where it is the place where you can get your food and also go and enjoy some recreational activities, such as our indoor track, indoor volleyball court, and most notably our 3-story rock climbing and bouldering wall. And on the next slide, I talk about the WUE. So ours is you just have to apply and be admitted by March 1st, but you also need to commit to Central by June 1st to be guaranteed that WUE. If you commit after June 1st, we can't guarantee it. It is open to any major, so there is no restrictions there, and there's also no separate application. We actually get that you're interested or that you'll be getting the WUE by you selecting that you are from the state of Alaska. So that's how we know. And then for other scholarships, we have Scholarship Central, which is open to students who have at least applied to Central Washington University. And it's one application that filters you through over 320 potential scholarships. And these again can be stacked on top of your WUE award. We also have the Douglas Honor College, which is a $1,000 tuition award per year. And then just so you know, the total savings at Central, if you are granted the WUE, which you would be if you apply and are admitted, is $10,479. And on my last slide, I talk about our online experiences because I know that Robert, Sarah, and myself, we're all disappointed that we can't be there with you in person. And at Central, we have some online experiences where you can still engage with us. So we have admission counselors appointments that they can be over the phone or over virtual, like Zoom, just like this. We have daily campus tours that are virtual. We do Transfer Tuesdays. So if you do decide to go to a 2-year university first and just want to learn more information about the transfer process, you can tune in there. We'll have other information sessions about support services on our campus coming soon. And we're doing a fall virtual preview day at the end of October that you can register for on our website. And then also we have Spanish speaking appointments for our Spanish speaking students and their families. And again, my contact information is there, but it'll also be on the last slide just in case you forget to grab it now. So I'll turn it over to Robert.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Third in line, we're going to talk about Western Washington University. I don't have quite as cute a description of this picture, but that's where on campus I work. That's a brick building with some trees in front of it. There will be cuter pictures of campus a little bit later on in the slideshow. First off, we're going to talk about where Western is. We've got a nice little map over on the next slide here. As was previously mentioned, we are in Bellingham, Washington, very northwest corner of the state. We're actually the university in the lower 48 that is, like, geographically speaking, the closest to Alaska. We're about 20 minutes from the Canadian border, about an hour south of Vancouver, BC, an hour and a half north of Seattle, Washington. Bellingham is a medium-sized town of about 83,000 people, and that's not counting the college students. So it doesn't totally empty out in the summer when the college students are gone, though you can certainly notice a difference. Bellingham is very known for being a real outdoors destination. With our location, we have access to world-class mountain biking, hiking, backpacking, and running trails. We're right on the water. For students who are interested in canoeing and kayaking and other water activities, we're about an hour away from the Mount Baker ski area, and pretty accessible to the North Cascades as well. For those of you who are a little bit more of indoor animals, there's a great downtown in Bellingham. We have 2 different farmers markets, a couple of different local independent theaters, lots of local restaurants, cafes. The brewery and pub scene, when you're a little bit older, is very big here as well. So there's a lot going on in Bellingham. You have great access to 2 major cities, Vancouver and Seattle, if you're into going to the big city, to go to concerts, festivals, big city things like that, while living in a more medium-sized city. And we also have an airport here in Bellingham, which I know is a big deal for those of us who come and go from Alaska frequently. So that's where we are. Let's talk a little bit now about what we do. A little bit on academics and student life. We have 175 different majors at Western, so I'm certainly not going to go into great detail in any of them in particular. But some important stuff to know is that our probably best known programs are marine biology, environmental sciences, education, and psychology. We have a real focus on the hands-on undergraduate experience here at Western. Really, for those of you looking to go into the natural sciences, something cool to know is that we have an off-campus marine sciences center in Anacortes, Washington, which is about 40 minutes or so south of Bellingham. That's actually where the picture here is from. It's from our off-campus marine sciences lab down there in Anacortes. A lot of students from out of state specifically come to Western for environmental programs and for marine biology. So we have a really nice setup there. We also have a pretty unique program called the Fairhaven College of Interdisciplinary Studies. That's where you can actually design your own major. So if one of those 175 majors isn't totally what you're looking for, you work with staff and faculty to build a major by incorporating classes from different programs around Western. My favorite recent example of this is a student by the name of Brian, who's actually from Juneau, wanted to go to college to study art therapy, which is not necessarily something that's offered as an undergraduate degree. Most places, WUE states are not. And so he was able to build himself a degree in art therapy by combining art classes, dance classes, psychology classes, and neuroscience classes. So that's the sort of thing that you can do here. Like I mentioned, 175 different programs. If that's not what you're looking for, we have the option for you to build your own as well. 99% of our classes at Western are taught by professors. You can easily go 4 full years here without having a single class taught by a TA. That was my experience when I was a student at Western. The only things taught by teaching assistants are sections of English 101 and Comm 101 and the lab sections of some science classes. For context, we're a medium-sized university of about 16,000 students, which is almost considered a large university, but we're just on that top bar of medium-sized universities. And we are what's known as a teaching first university. So while all of our professors do engage in research, their number one priority is to being a resource for their students, both in and out of the classroom. That's part of why we're able to have 99% of our classes taught by professors. And that also means that when professors come to Western, when they choose to take a job here, they do so knowing that we are a teaching first university. And so we tend to attract professors who are passionate about teaching and passionate about being there for their students. Outside of the classroom, kind of what the social scene looks like at Western, we are a little bit different than a lot of the public universities that you're going to see in the WUE states, in that we don't have any fraternities or sororities. There's not a Greek system at Western. And so part of what that means is that student clubs here are a really big deal. Most Western students are involved in at least one club, many involved in multiple. We have over 250 different clubs. Kind of some of the main types of clubs are serious academic clubs like Pre-Med Student Club and Spanish Club, as well as organizations that will help you get outside. Skiing and Snowboarding Club is the second biggest club on our campus. We also have Hiking Club, Longboarding Club, and clubs that are just for fun. One of our newest clubs is an archery club. We have different movie clubs, board game clubs. We have the only official collegiate Quidditch team in the Northwestern United States. So when we talk about student life at Western, the club experience is a big part of where that happens. One other campus resource that I like to talk about as well is our outdoors center. Like I mentioned, Bellingham is a real outdoors destination. We have gear rental, we have guided excursions for students who maybe you've never been rock climbing before, maybe you've never been sea kayaking before. It's also a really cool employment opportunity because I know a lot of you are going to be real experts in your outdoors area, and you can actually get a paying job leading guided excursions, teaching your fellow students how to have fun and be safe in the wilderness. So a lot going on at Western inside and outside of the classroom. But now we're going to get back to the WUE and scholarships. I see we have a couple of questions. Question, how many students are in each class? Average class size at Western is about 27 students. And a question from earlier that I neglected to get to, does the 4-year WUE eligibility require students to maintain a certain GPA? I can only speak to how it works at Western. You have to have at least a 2.0 GPA during your time at Western to remain in good academic standing and hold on to your WUE. That's the sort of thing that's going to be another Ask the Universities you're interested in. about. So great questions. Thank you for sharing those. WUE at Western, like was mentioned before, looks a little bit different than at a lot of other schools. The WUE is actually sort of the gold standard of a 3 scholarship tier system at Western. So as you can see, the GPA numbers and the test score numbers for the WUE at Western are pretty high. The average recipient around a 3.9 GPA. We're not going to get into the test scores too much because for you seniors, that's not going to be part of the criteria like I mentioned before. But we have 2 other major out-of-state student scholarships as well. We have the Western Award for Excellence, which is $8,000 a year, and the Western Achievement Award, which is about $6,000 a year. So while only about 10 to 15% of eligible students at Western are able to receive the WUE, that full $14,000 a year amount, well over half of incoming students from WUE states get one of those 3 big awards. These are ones that don't stack on top of each other. It's sort of like gold, silver, bronze medal at the Olympics, right? You win one, but you don't win 2 or 3 of them. We do have other merit and non-merit based scholarships that do stack on top of the WUE. And like I mentioned, the full WUE amount is $14,000 a year. So over the course of 4 years, I wasn't a math major, but that's $14, $28, $56,000 over the course of 4 years at Western. Little bit on what the application timeline looks like on the next slide over here. We have 2 application deadlines at Western. We have an early action deadline on November 1st. The early action deadline is for you to receive an early notification about your admissions decision at Western. It does not impact the WUE or any of our other out-of-state student scholarships. While we have a pretty high bar in terms of the academic criteria, the WUE at Western is not tied to an early application. It is not tied to you being in a particular major, and there's no separate application to fill out. The most important deadline for you to know, both for the WUE and the admissions process in general, is January 31st. That's the deadline for admission to Western and also full consideration for all of our out-of-state student scholarships. And then next slide, last thing that I'm going to leave you all with is, and we're going to have a slide on this at the end too, but just really want to encourage you all to stay in touch with us, be in contact with us. I'm your admissions counselor, you all being students from Alaska, so I'm going to be the first one who reads and reviews your application and is going to be working the most closely with your application. I'm a pretty open book in terms of like what we're looking for in the admissions process, so please feel free to send me an email, give me a call. To reach out, I'm also a Western graduate. I'm also an Alaskan. I grew up in Fairbanks, West Valley High School. If there's anyone out there from Fairbanks. So I'm always happy to chat about the out-of-state student experience, going out of state to college, what it's like living in Washington, student life, anything you all like. So just please be in touch if there's anything that you need from me.
Awesome.
And is all of us.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And I think it would probably be best, we've got a couple of minutes and I think we can cover this question, but it was the one posed about what the minimum GPA might be at our institutes while you're a current student receiving the WUE. At WSU, our requirement is that you remain in academic good standing. So that's about a 2.5 college GPA and remain a full-time student. So not a part-time student, but full-time, 12 credits or more each semester.
And to make it easy, Central Washington University has the same requirements.
And
Awesome.
so we'll say addendum to what I said before with the GPA, we also require that you remain a full-time student to keep receiving the WUE.
Great. Thank you both for being here this evening. Thank you to all of our participants for tuning in. This was a great time. I know we all had a blast putting this together for you. If you have any questions about applying to our universities, take down our contact information. We're all more than happy to assist you through the process. And we hope to see you all down in Washington someday soon. And with that, I think we can hand it back over to our StripeScan facilitator.
Sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted today, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions at strivescan.com/Alaska. And in about a week, you will be able to find the sessions recording, as well as all the other session recordings at the same website where you registered. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.